Welcome everyone to today's Business Leader Series podcast session. Today's guest is someone who embodies the spirit of innovation and leadership in the tech industry. Damien Landais, co-CEO at Genesis Electronic Design, brings a wealth of experience from his time in Finland, where he played a pivotal role in the development of Bedit, a Finnish sleep tracker later acquired by Apple, which is quite exciting to be honest. His journey from leading hardware engineering at to co-CEO at Genesis Australia is a testament to his expertise and vision. Under his leadership, Genesis, founded in 1991, continues to excel in providing product development, hardware, and software engineering. Let's dive into his unique perspective on leading a company known for its technical excellence and quality. So, welcome, Damien, to the show. I'm quite excited to have you for a couple of reasons, and one of the main reasons is that it's quite rare in Australia for businesses or tech companies to focus on the hardware element. We hear a lot of great stories about the software, but we don't get to really hear more about the hardware. So it'll be good to just understand, in your career path, what led you to the world of electronics and how it shaped your career path.
Yeah, thanks for having me today. It all started, I guess, like a lot of people, just tinkering
Mm.
around, having a bit of
Yeah,
electronics, some toys, opening
yeah,
them. They didn't work. We wanted to fix them.
mm.
That's how it
Yeah,
really started, my passion for
yeah,
electronics.
mm.
It was quite strong interest both in mechanics and in
Yeah,
electronics back then.
mm.
So then I continued that pathway. I was very interested in math, in physics.
Yeah,
So at university, I had both the mechanics and the electronics, and that's when I really kind of
mm.
found a real passion and interest in the electronics more than the mechanics. Then
Yeah,
obviously it
yeah,
all started there. So it really all
mm.
started there, and during my uni degree, so that was in France, I
Yeah,
had a good opportunity to go to finish my studies in Finland, where I
yeah,
actually started my career. And back then, so we are
mm.
talking mid 2000, right? 20
Yeah.
years ago
Not
almost
showing your age at
nowadays.
all. Not showing your age at all. Yeah, yeah,
Exactly. Nokia was a big company in Europe, or
yeah.
I mean worldwide back then. Obviously,
Mm.
that was kind of at the beginning of the smartphone when they started to decline a bit and be taken
Yeah.
over by Samsung and Apple. But
Mm.
Nokia was big, and that was a very big interest for me to go to such a country to learn more about the
Yeah.
electronics industry. And that's
Mm.
such a, obviously every single piece of software needs some hardware to run on. And
Yep.
often like the world lately has really evolved
Mm.
towards a more software oriented world. It
Yep.
used to be like 20 years ago was more
Mm.
hardware and a bit of
Yep.
software. It has quickly shifted. Like it really
Mm.
went the opposite way now.
Yep.
So, but still hardware is required. Like even though software runs, a mobile app will run on some
Mm.
hardware. It needs a phone. It still needs some piece of hardware in the background.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think the whole space around Internet of Technology is growing rapidly, but I think it's also a lot of tech companies are realizing the power of hardware. I think there was a moment where hardware was very important, and I think slowly it transitioned to software being quite important. But then I think, like especially with this things that's happening in the smartphone space, I think all organizations are thinking, okay, literally not
Yeah.
having a hardware may be a risk for them. So I think we see Google and other organizations really thinking about how to de-risk their own organization by having their own hardware as well. Um,
Yeah.
it's interesting you share your experience in Finland and then coming to Australia as well. I guess what made you choose Australia, and as you unpack that, it'll be good to hear your story around the difference in the business environment in Finland compared to Australia as well.
Mhm. So I actually didn't come for work here originally. I came
Mm.
for my partner. So that was
Yeah,
not work that brought me here, but I had been
yeah,
9 years working in Finland for the same company.
yeah.
So I had
Mm,
evolved from being an intern to being
mm,
quite a senior and manager there
yeah,
in my company. And
mm,
obviously my career started to stagnate a bit. I needed a bit of a
yeah,
change. Meeting my partner was a
mm,
good thing. So I decided to come here to Australia so that we would be together here.
mm,
Obviously, the visa
yeah,
process and so on, always a bit of an
yeah,
interesting one.
yeah,
It was a
of
bit hard
course,
for
yeah,
me to get a
yeah,
job, so I wanted to become
mm,
I wanted to continue in the electronics industry and the hardware engineering.
yeah,
So I came here, I was looking for a job. I got rejected quite a few times because I was only
mm,
on a temporary visa.
yeah,
But I had then my partner visa in process. So Genesis
yeah,
decided to give me a chance as an
yeah.
electronics
That's
and
amazing.
hardware engineer. That's
Yeah,
where, yeah, that was really amazing. Now I'm quite lucky because going from Finland to Australia, beyond the weather, which is widely different, but that's another story.
Yeah.
It's quite, in a business environment, it's quite relaxed, both of them. It's not like, I've obviously been French origin. I mean, I'm now French and Australian, but being French originally, I've worked a bit in France. It's quite strict. Even dress code are very strict in France, in the engineering world. In Finland and in Australia, it's quite more relaxed. In the engineering world, at least, in a design house like we are. So it feels like there's more relationship going on with customers or with suppliers. It's actually there's not a strong divide between everyone. So everyone is really trying to work more together. Now, obviously, there's some quite strong difference between Finland and Australia. Is like in Finland, it's quite separated. People like work is work, and everyone is going to be working together as work. And as soon as work is over, people are separated.
Yes, I heard
But
that. Yeah,
in
I heard
here,
that
like
as
there
well.
can be, in Australia, it's a bit more relaxed for that. Like there will be some events, there will be a lot of networking events. So after work, people are going to go for drinks and so on. So like the relationship are stronger. And I think it's probably the fact that both Australia and Finland are somehow smaller countries compared to the big giants, like obviously USA, China, and the rest of the bigger country in Europe or in the European Union. Being small countries, you have to be quite integrated into your network, integrated into your industry, and people are obviously developing those relationships a bit closer.
Yeah, that's
So
what. No,
I think that's really what. Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, it's really lovely to for you to share just some of the working style differences. I know you're quite invested in culture, and I think you spent some time learning about embedding cultures as well. I mean, one of the things that's happened, especially since COVID, was the theme around organizations building teams remotely, but also global teams as well. And I think that's kind of the direction we're heading, is a more connected world, as you per se, building the networks in the industries as well. I mean, for a leader to, I'm just thinking hypothetically, but for a leader to manage a Finland team versus an Australian team, is there like a different kind of leadership style that they should be thinking about, or how does that normally work? Because I know in the Asian countries, the way to lead people is quite different. And so it'd be nice for you to unpack those elements for the European market.
Yeah, of course. So in Finland, like in the Nordics in general in Europe, people are a bit colder, I would say, without offending them, because probably they're proud of that. So there's not really like the strong interaction. So to manage them, to lead them, you kind of need to give them space and not being always on their back or always being around. You need to give them like very wide interactions and kind of give them like, okay, that's your instruction for the week, that's what I want you to do, and let them do their own thing a bit more. When here I found like also we are a bit bigger team than I was in Finland, but obviously here people really enjoy working together, and I think that's because Australian people in general are a bit warmer to each other compared to Finnish people. So people will enjoy way more this connection that you will have with your colleagues.
Yeah. Well, I think it's relative, because it's interesting you say that. When I speak with people, at least in in Australia, where they've got teams in different states, one of the things they say is that the different states, some certain states are much warmer than other states, and I think oftentimes it's to do with either food or the weather. The places that have better food and the weather are much warmer, so maybe there's a correlation around that. Damien, you touched base on your journey.
Actually,
Yeah.
Maybe there is, and
yeah.
Sorry, I think there's a bit of a delay. Sorry for that.
Yeah.
What I wanted to say on COVID times, obviously working remotely was a bit hard. When we have like more younger, more junior people and more senior people, the junior can actually really learn from the senior, and that's why it was quite harder on the team to be built during COVID. So when actually office could reopen and we could come back, we didn't have many people to kind of pull back here. Everyone wanted to be back at office, because we have this culture of like people working together and having a great environment here in the office. So that was one of the main points we had, and which was great for us.
Yeah, no, it's really interesting you bring this up as well because I mean, a lot of organizations that's what they're tackling with. I think you've got a nice problem, which is everyone wants to come back to the office, but this element of mentoring the junior staff, I think it's quite essential in their career path. And sometimes there is this element of osmosis, which is like when you're there in the environment, you just kind of learn by just seeing your leader do certain things, the nuances around that, which is sometimes a bit harder in the virtual world. I mean, what's been some of the insightful things that have led to a successful mentoring journey for some of the junior staff?
Yeah, so it's I think one of the main critical point is giving them tasks that they're actually able to do. Quite often, the danger is to give them
Yeah.
tasks which is actually too difficult or a bit too hard, and that
Hmm.
can be quite quickly
Yeah.
demotivating. Even though they will get the support that they
Yeah.
will have, not reaching your goal
Mm.
can be a bit hard on the mental.
Yeah.
So giving
Mm.
them tasks, finding the tasks that are proper, that will be challenging still,
Mm.
but not too difficult so
Mm.
that they can actually reach it with a success. That's a hard part. Obviously, then
Yep.
having the team to support it so that they can feel
Hmm.
confident. And that's what we are really trying to build here in Genesis as part of the team, so that any of those
Yep.
guys can come and talk to another one to ask them questions. The more senior
Okay.
people will take the time to to teach them the way we do things here in Genesis, because things are different in every company. And obviously, there's still the technical
Yeah.
side. Yes, they went to uni for like four
Yeah.
or 5 years, but we don't learn everything at uni. And I was
Mm.
the same when I went out
Yeah.
of uni. Like there's a lot of it I didn't know. So they will
Mm.
need to take the time to
Yeah.
learn
Yeah.
get the experience,
Mm.
and reach their success. And that's how they become really senior a couple of years, like quite a few years later. They have learned a lot.
Yep.
But in Genesis, we have such a wide range of projects that we do that there's like a
Yes. Yep.
lot that we can learn in a short time. And that's really
Yep.
what's interesting here.
Yep. Mm. No, it's interesting you bring the element around the wide range of services you provide, but also to the client base as well. I know that you're very strong in the medtech space around building medical devices, but you also do some really cool stuff around. I think it was um, tracking the sunglasses, where you pretty much have a live tracker on where the sunglasses are. So it'd be nice to hear some of your perspectives on what some exciting projects you've worked on and how can organizations really benefit from your services?
Yeah, so obviously there's some projects that I cannot talk about, so I'm gonna talk about the one I can talk
Yeah,
about.
yeah,
There's a few things that
yeah,
we
yeah,
have done in the recent time. We actually worked recently on a golf cart. So it was a remote controlled golf buggy, like carrying your clubs basically. That you had a remote and
yep,
both wheels were independent to each other and driving around
mm-hmm, yep,
the golf course. And we actually adapted that to be a wheelchair.
mm.
So it's
Wow,
a powered wheelchair, which is
yep,
also remote control, like joystick controlled.
mm-hmm,
So we did that for our customer, and it was very interesting to see like the vision that the customer had. Obviously, being willing to
mm,
be this easily powered wheelchair, so that you can retrofit to
yep,
your own manual wheelchair. You can just have those wheels that
mm,
are quite light, so that people that are a bit
yep,
less strong can still actually drive it and go in their car. So that's for
mm,
semi-able people,
yep,
but they would be able to
mm,
kind of remove those wheels and dismantle the wheelchair and get into their car on their own. So that
yep,
was obviously like very interesting project. What did we
mm.
did also? We did an air purifier and sanitizer
Okay,
actually, and during
yeah,
COVID. That was way before COVID that we had started. Obviously,
yep,
when COVID came, that was quite an interesting project that we would have to work
yep,
on, and we really try to push harder to get into production. So,
yep,
but it's really like
mm,
this satisfaction to get an idea. A customer come, he has an idea, and we are
mm,
able to kind of do the whole development, the prototype, the
yep,
verification, the validation on the
mm,
system level outside in the outside
yep,
world till the
mm,
production. And we get into the production,
yep,
and that's when like we see a real product, and that's very
mm,
satisfying basically for everyone that has worked on the project. Seeing your product that you have
yep,
designed in the real world, it's always a pleasure.
yeah. Well, I think it's a game changer because with normally software solutions, it's kind of like you've got to go on your laptop and use it, or you got to use your phone. Whereas I guess the device, it's literally physical. And yeah, I totally agree. It's such a nice journey, just getting the feel of it. because my wife, she ended up doing a dental product business, which is more of a physical product, and it was just like it was a nice experience just to have a feel of it, test it out. I mean, one of the things I'm thinking about is like when an organization is thinking about exploring these smart devices or Internet of Things, I guess how do they find a right partner for them? Because you talk, and I think this is a quite important topic because there's an appetite sometimes for organizations to try and do it themselves. But then I guess for a lot of organizations, they just search the web and go, okay, which one's the cheapest? We'll just go with that. So it'd be nice for you to unpack how can businesses really get a strong point of view on how to choose a ideal partner that can not only help them develop the product, test it out, and deploy it, but ensure that they're thinking beyond what they could think about and really gain that expertise based on your experiences to make sure that it's a successful commercial product as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's true that it's actually hard to understand how design house may work. So we are obviously multiple design house. Our strong focus is really on the electronics and the software. We do a bit of mechanical design, but we have been since 1991 really on the hardware and the software, the embedded software and mobile app, for example. And some people will be tempted to be like, oh, that's actually quite expensive to go to a design house, so I'll hire my staff. And we hear that very, very regularly. The problem is like when you hire a staff, you will hire one person and you'll have that person on the book for all the years to come until like basically you have to pay the salary every year, even if you're not doing development. And it's one person with a skill set that person has. When you come to a design house like Genesis, you get access to basically 20 engineers with a really broad skill set, like from hardware prototyping, assembly, manufacturing, to the software, to the mobile app, and to the cloud. So it's really like you get access to a multitude of skills that you wouldn't be able to get in a single person. And that's really what the difference is between hiring your own staff and getting to a design house. Now, when you look into the different design house, everyone has their own strong parts. A lot of the design house will be way stronger on the industrial design side, for example, or the mechanical side, but they may be quite weak on the hardware and the software side. Now, that's an interesting thing because quite often at the beginning of a project, everyone wants the thing to look good. That's what they want. They want the concept, right? So they will go believe oh, industrial design is better because we will get a beautiful concept. But a concept may bring investors because it looks nice, but it won't bring you a final product that will go on the market. You won't be able to deliver something which is manufactured here or produced here in Australia potentially and sold. So that's where you have to kind of counterbalance that and go to the people you believe will be the best one to bring your product to the end of the market. And quite often, going to people like us in Genesis, we will be very strong on the electronics and the software. We will be able to get that. We will be able to support our customers through the manufacturing so that we are not going to let them down there. We are working, we have that vision that they have an idea, we want it on the market. We will do everything in between to help them. Now, on the industrial design side, we will work with partners, of course. Like we still want the thing to look good, right? And if we are not able to do that, we will get someone. There's a few partners that we work with here in Sydney, and we will get them to be sure that the customer gets the best out of everything.
Yep, well said. And one of the things that I was thinking about as you were sharing all of that is I noticed that New South Wales government, I guess this is more for the New South Wales listeners, is that New South Wales government recently kickstarted their startup grant program. And from my understanding, Genesis is part of supporting that capability or, is in some collaboration in that piece. Are you able to share a bit about that as well, Damien?
Yeah, so the New South Wales government basically kind of came back on their earlier decision to stop funding the startup. So they have this MVP, minimum viable product, grant for startups to be able to develop a first, either like we call it MVP, proof of concept. It's a bit like it can be a bit anything like this. Now in Genesis, we have developed our own platform. So we have spent a lot of our time and effort to develop our own platform to be able to support those startups. So startup may have an idea. Quite often the budget will be limited, but you need to have something you can demonstrate, something tangible to go to the investor and say like, hey, give me money so that I can bring that product to the market. when it's
Yep.
only paper and PowerPoint presentation, it doesn't go very far.
Yep.
They need something to
Yeah.
be able
Yeah.
to prove. So based on our platform, we are able to have, we call it the wireless wearable sensor, because the
Nice. Yep.
strong idea was really the wearable lately. We have developed a baseboard which has all the information, like all the hard work done already on the software and the hardware. And then we can just add on a plug-on module that we will customize for those
Yep.
potential startups to do what their application needs to do. So we will have a minimum hardware work, minimum software work. I mean, there's still some work to be done, so
Okay.
it's not obviously a free
Yeah.
service. We will
Yep.
get our mobile app, because we have done our mobile app template so that we are able to actually provide all of that for a very minimum cost, and to support the startup
Yep.
to get to that stage of MVP, potentially bringing investors. And then after that, we can work. So that cost will really is minimal. And then after that, we can really work on developing the full compliant product. Obviously, for medical device, there's a lot of regulatory compliance required. For
Yep.
consumer device, there's still some compliance. Safety and DMC is still a consumer requirement thing. And help them, support them through the manufacturing, being sure that we are optimizing the production test jig or anything to save them cost. Trying to keep it here, like we do all the best that we can to keep the manufacturing in Australia, because it's important to keep our manufacturer and our manufacturing capabilities here locally. It's also so much easier to handle and to manage.
Yep.
So that's
And I
really
think
what
it's
we are trying to
especially
work
the
with
security.
our customers.
Yep. Yep. And I think it's
the
there's
security.
always a balance, which is outsourcing. Yeah. Yep. I think there's always a balance between outsourcing and doing it like in Australia. I think, as you said, sometimes the communication is a lot easier, and the security. But one of the things that often organizations have shared with me is that sometimes on paper it looks cheaper, but then in reality it's another story, because of the multiple miscommunications or the multiple issues around the quality element. You talked a bit about the difference between a highly regulatory environment like the medical devices space and the consumer space. In terms of what you're seeing in your point of view, what's the key trends happening in the smart device sector? Like, do you see a strong investments in medtech or consumer technology? Like, I guess.
Yeah, so quite obviously in the technology in general, there's a very strong investment. IoT, Internet of Things, that's a word that came like 12 years ago, I believe, probably even more actually
Yep.
now. And it's been a word that has been trendy since that. It's not gone, it's still here. Like
Yep.
everyone talks about IoT. But in
Yep.
general, in the medtech was a very strong push, especially here in New South Wales. A lot of
Yep.
the things actually follow the grants that are provided by the government.
Okay.
The government can,
Yep.
either federal or state government, will push the
Yep.
area that they believe are important. Obviously, the medtech is,
Yep.
we are all living older nowadays. There's going to be more and more need for
Yep.
medtech device to kind of keep us living longer, but also helping us living at home longer, so that we're like
Yep.
older people can stay at home and not be a too big burden on the rest of the medical system. Agritech, agriculture is a big thing in here in Australia. So obviously anything that can make it easier to keep a lot of agriculture in Australia will be quite important.
Yep.
And what we see now with the 2050 climate change target, obviously anything which is environmental sensor monitoring. We lived through the bushfires a couple of years, like 4 years ago now. Anything that can help monitoring this will be a big thing in the coming years to avoid that so big catastrophe that we can have.
Yeah, definitely agree. I think there's been certain technologies that's able to obviously monitor earthquakes, but I think, it's literally a lifesaver having technologies that can monitor natural disasters. I think it saves so many lives, so many catastrophes as well. While you were sharing that, there was a couple of questions that came to my mind. I think the biggest one is you talked about Internet of Things. And it has been such a trending topic. I think we've seen some of the leap of innovations around that piece, around having smart homes recently, being able to obviously with Alexa, and I think from Google's devices as well. And then there's, I guess, the recent developments around AI, around it, taking leap steps around how they're evolving. I was watching a video by Elon Musk actually, which talks about smart devices and AI, combining to create, I guess, the future, the future robots of the world. And I think Elon Musk and a couple of other people have developed, I guess, at a certain level, some technologies around it being able to communicate and really become a caretaker as well. What's your thoughts on this whole robotic space? Because I think, we've seen so many movies of them initially being good and then taking over. So it'd be nice for you to unpack some of that. And I think I saw a dog as well that was like a robot dog that could be a companion for humans recently.
Yeah, so obviously robotics has been in our life for quite a while.
Yep. Yep.
Automobiles manufacturers were the first one to really use it, or
Yeah.
I don't know if they were the first one, but they were the first big ones to use it. Obviously, there's a lot on the manufacturing chain. So robots is not something new. It's something that has evolved
Yep.
a lot over the years. Now, AI is this new trendy word, right? ChatGPT put AI on the map, basically, recently. That's what happened. But AI has been here for AI, artificial intelligence, and also machine learning has been here since the 50s, I believe. So that's been a
Okay.
while back. We did actually our first project on AI 8 years ago, I believe. So it was just like not a
Okay. Yeah.
big,
Yeah.
it was not a big thing back then. It was just like, it
Yep.
was a name like others. It's the same when IoT came in. Like
Mm.
anything that was a Bluetooth
Yep.
device before was just an IoT thing, right?
Yep.
There was already
Yep.
thousands,
It is an
millions of them,
IoT. Yep.
but it's an IoT. Just the
Yep.
fact that it had a connectivity was an IoT thing. And it's the same with AI. There's a
Yep.
lot of AI or machine learning already in the world. Now, obviously, AI has its limitations. The fact like everyone believes that it will take some of the jobs and so on. Well, it's possible, right? It's a new trend. Like everything is possible, but the
Yep.
big industrial period was the same. Like
Mm.
people were a bit scared because there was this big industrial revolution
Yep.
happening and that it will take all the job.
Mm.
It actually didn't. It's just
Yep.
that human has managed
Yep.
to adjust to this and created the job
Mm.
that it needed for it. So it was actually, it's
Yep.
not that big a destruction
Mm.
of all the job. Probably with AI, it's probably going to be something similar. Now, the big question is
Mm.
how far can AI go? Because right now, ChatGPT
Yeah.
is basically using, like, to talk about the ChatGPT thing. ChatGPT is really
Yeah.
using everything it can find in the net, on the web right now.
Yep.
That's what it's using
Mm.
to feed himself. But quite quickly,
Yep.
everything which is created is actually created by AI. So it's going to feed itself
Yep.
back. What are going to be the
Yep.
limit? It's going to be very interesting to see, obviously, in the near future. Now, in the robotics
Yep.
and the support, of course, there's going to be a lot happening because people want to be a bit more independent. Having an
Yep.
animal, a companion, for example, or like
Mm.
you were talking about a dog, which is a robot. That may
Yep.
be a solution for some people that are lonely and do not want.
Mm.
I know that a lot of people do not want to be in aged care, for example. They
Yep.
want to stay at
Mm.
home as long as possible, but they still need to have that person.
Yep.
So obviously, that may be
Yep.
something that's a solution to the
Mm.
healthcare system. How far is that gonna go? Only future will kind of tell. And obviously, that's what
Yep.
people, that will depend a lot of what people want. Nothing will be forced onto
Mm.
them. Like, for example, this potential
Yep.
companion or dog is going to be something that people buy if
Mm.
they want to. It's never going to be something
Mm.
really, really forced onto them.
Yep.
But that's something that can obviously make the healthcare system a bit lighter and help
Mm.
potentially people to
Yep.
stay at home longer for people who really want it.
Mm. Yeah, and it's interesting you bring up the whole aged care space. I mean, I think literally no one really wants to start at aged care. In terms of the user, I think a lot of people that I've spoken with, they're like, I don't want to go there. That's like my nightmare. I think a couple of people are already trying to figure out ways and how to avoid that scenario. But also the fact that we do have an aging population across the world, and I guess we've got to find a solution for that. Damien, we're just coming to the end of the show, and personally for me, what's been quite inspiring is just your story coming all the way to Finland, to Australia. I think a lot of people can resonate because Australia is a land of a multicultural community where they've taken a leap of courage to come to Australia. I think literally a lot of people have also experienced the issues around the challenges dealing with visa and getting work, but you've kind of triumphed from all these challenges, and I think what's unique is that for a lot of people, they often see just the highlights of people's life story. So it'd be nice for you to unpack, some of the challenges that you had through the journey and then how you've been able to overcome them. Almost like three quick tips that you can share with the audience on what allowed you to be in a space that you are, which I think is quite an incredible story, mainly for the reasons around you're doing a role that you're very passionate about, you're in an industry that you're passionate about. And I can see that what you're doing at the moment is really creating impact beyond just generating commercial value, but really changing people's lives as well.
Yeah, so obviously a few of the tips, like when I arrived, the first challenge was really the visa and getting a job depending on the visa.
Yeah.
And it's really being able to explain your situation and why, and being truthful and why you want to actually stay and what's your path forward. It's very interesting. It's very important to be able to know your vision for the future, your personal vision, your self-assessments, I would say, and being able to say like, okay, that's where I want to be, and that's how I'm gonna be able to achieve that. And then if you're able to explain that to others, others will believe in you. So that's really one of the first steps, and kind of never getting discouraged. There's so many times I was like, oh, I wanted to give up, and I was like, I'm never gonna get a job. I got so many interviews. It's supposed to be easy to get a job here, speaking English, and in the end, it was not as easy as I thought. So it's really never give up. Australia is a beautiful country. There's a lot of beautiful people. So there's gonna be chance that you will have to really catch and run with. Other thing is really like keeping learning. I think for a lot of people, they believe that they have reached a point of their career that they are happy with. Oops, sorry, there's been a bit of a fall here. That they have reached a point in their career that they that they're happy with. But actually, if you keep learning, your career is not ending here, especially when you have this possibility of learning and continuing to learn new things in the technology space. Things move quickly. You cannot stop for 5 years to stop learning because things have changed so much. There's always new communication. Like just looking at the USB has changed so many times over the years. So that's what you need to continue to learn, to be on top of the technology, know what's being done somewhere else so that you don't repeat what has been done, so that you're really in terms of innovation. And I think another tip I would really give to anyone is understand when you develop a product, understand what the user wants. Sometimes be open-minded to what actually the advice and what other people are saying. Quite often you're like, that's my vision and that's going to be only my vision and we're all going to get that to market. That's actually not how things work. Do your market research, be open-minded to change your product, to adjust your product to actually how it could be, how the public or the consumer could be receptive to it. That's really like those important parts of in developing a product. Quite often you want to do what you actually had in your mind and you believe that what you have done, and sometimes, it's the same for me. What I have in my mind, I believe it's going to be the best thing, but it may not be. So listen to the others, work with the others, and to be able to get the best product out to the market.
Yeah, well said, Damien. I mean, I think the space around being persistent is so important because, I mean, just like, I guess, whether the stock market or just all the curves that happen in life, I mean, it can only go so down. I mean, eventually it's got to go up as well. So I think that's quite important to remember. And I think, especially in today's world, I think the skill development, whether you're an individual or a company, it's literally essential, especially with the innovation that's taking forward. So I think, I think it's literally very critical around that space. And just around the customer, like, I mean, when we look at a lot of the great organizations that have excelled quite rapidly, it's literally through the customer development process around asking questions to the customers and really getting their real feedback. Sometimes, we can be so fixated on this is what I want. And I've been in so many situations where it's like, I want to create this, but the market is telling me this. And then eventually you just kind of gotta let go of your ego and just go, you know what? You just got to follow it. But David, it was so lovely having you. And thank you for just taking your time to share some of your insights, and look forward to your continuous growing journey as well.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me. It was really good to talk with you, Jay. Thank you.